So the MVP Bowl is set. We're going to get to see Josh Allen against Lamar Jackson in the divisional round. Not even the AFC Championship. It's going to be the divisional round next week. Buffalo putting the finishing touches on a blowout win over the Denver Broncos. Big first down diving catch from Dalton Kincaid on third down has the Bills in scoring range again. So I decided to get this started a little bit early because this is going to be a monumental game next week in the AFC playoffs between Lamar Jackson's Baltimore Ravens and Josh Allen's Buffalo Bills. We call it the MVP Bowl because these are the two guys who are the front runners for the MVP, and it's them and everybody else. It's not going to be close between number one, number two, and then number three after those two guys. Tied for the league lead in QBR. I thought that was poetic this season, both at a 77.3 QBR exactly. Josh Allen has been a little bit better than Lamar Jackson in terms of expected points added per play, but they've also been 1-2 there. And look at their career trajectories. This is really interesting. Kevin Cole does such a great job with the data. He put this up online. This is charting the offensive grade and the expected points added per play, one on the x-axis, one on the y-axis, and it includes all the seasons for Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen, who are about the same age or have been in the league around the same time. They both started their careers off rather rough, and they're both now superstars. You can see that experience has helped Jackson and Allen morph into quarterbacks in the upper right. And there really wasn't anything in between for either QB. It was either lower right, lower left stuff or upper right stuff. As soon as they figured it out in a huge way. And now they are just two absolute weapons. It is something where we're looking at them being head and shoulders above the rest of the league. And today we saw Josh Allen exact his dominance over the Denver Broncos' number one defense. Just looking at this, though, look down here in the bottom left. Remember Lamar Jackson, 2018, Josh Allen, 2018. Didn't seem that he could hit the broadside of a barn back then. It was 2020 where Josh Allen really started to find his accuracy. So he moved all the way up here to the upper right. And now Lamar Jackson has taken we saw some great form from him in 2019. That was the year that actually beat the 49ers in that rain game in Baltimore. But then we didn't see a Ravens 49ers Super Bowl. We saw a Chiefs 49ers Super Bowl instead. But Jackson under Todd Monken in his second year, offensive coordinator, has found his way back to the upper right next to Josh Allen. Allen and Jackson, 1-2 this year, depending on which way you're voting, really, because that's going to be a highly debated MVP for some time to come. But maybe they can settle it on the field. It's too bad they can't settle it on the field next week. I wish that the winner of this next week's game, the guy who played better, I wish the MVP could go to him. It seems like a really fair tiebreaker to me. Anyway, today's game between the Denver Broncos and the Buffalo Bills was really interesting to me because Bo Nix, the Denver Broncos quarterback, I think he can be a player. I think that he showed up and he was poised. He played composed football. He showed something with his legs. He obviously hit that deep ball on the game's very first possession. Sean Payton did a good job scheming things up to punch the Buffalo Bills first. But ultimately, this turned into Bo Nix being Luke Skywalker, and the other side was Darth Vader. That was Josh Allen in The Empire Strikes Back. Remember, Luke has a few lightsaber swings, we'll put it that way, that impressed Darth Vader early on. Impressive, most impressive, but then the master takes over. And Bo Nix is still the upstart rookie in this scenario, and Josh Allen might win the MVP this year. So the difference between the two QBs in this game was on full display. Allen had to work against the number one defense in the league. The Denver Broncos, by all the efficiency stats, have been the NFL's top defense. So a lot of people were saying, well, Josh Allen doesn't look like himself early in this game. Well, that's because he's facing this right here, the Denver Broncos at the very top. It's number one Denver, number two Minnesota, number three Philadelphia. We're going to get to see them in this next game against the Green Bay Packers. That should be a really good one. Look where the Eagles and the Packers are. But the Broncos were, by every measure, a middling offense this year that was improving over the course of the season because Bo Nix was getting better, as you would expect from a rookie quarterback under Sean Payton, one of the great play callers in the game. But they were carried by their defense. And that defense early on gave Josh Allen some trouble, especially in the red zone. But by the time that this was said and done, this Buffalo Bills offense, all the way over here on the right side, took over the football game. And the Buffalo Bills defense also put the clamps down on Bo Nix and company, which I think was significant. Now, this sets up next week, the MVP Bowl, Josh Allen against Lamar Jackson. I mean, both of these offenses essentially in the same spot on this graph. And the defensive positioning is really interesting to me because we look at the fact that over the past, this is since week 11. I just changed it up from this. Look, this is the whole season. This is since week 11. Baltimore's defense has been much better than anybody else in the entire league since about mid-November. Meanwhile, Buffalo's defense has slipped a little bit. So you can argue that Baltimore is the better overall team in this game based on recent performance over the past 6 weeks or so, although I do think that Buffalo's defense did show something in this football game. Sean Payton gave the Bills his best punch. The Bills stabilized, and the Bills found a way to, I mean, right now we have 5 minutes left in the second half, and the Bills have yet to give up a point in the second half. So it looks like their defense has taken a step forward, and we'll see what it looks like in this MVP Bowl against Lamar Jackson and the Ravens, who looked really, really good last night. It's going to be Ravens and Bills, Texans and Chiefs. With the Kansas City Chiefs, it's fascinating to me because when we look at our team strength chart, it tells us exactly what our eye test has shown, that the Chiefs have not been a dominant football team this year. So Houston obviously hasn't either. Kansas City is going to be favored in that game at home. I think the big concern for Kansas City, assuming that they're able to advance past this next round, is they've got to play one of these two juggernauts after that in the AFC Championship, either Baltimore or Buffalo. And they beat Baltimore narrowly to begin the season, but they did not beat Baltimore, although that game, they did not beat Buffalo, although that game was on the road for Kansas City, and they've earned the home field advantage. But the bracket is about to be extremely, extremely interesting. Let's talk a little bit more, though, about Bo Nix and Josh Allen. I think with Bo, it's funny because we heard Jim Nantz and Tony Romo compare him to Josh Allen. He's obviously not the same size, but he does play with a certain physicality that does impress me, that I think is going to pay off for him in the long run. And I think playing under Sean Payton is also going to be really helpful for Bo Nix. The physicality shows up obviously when he's running the football, but also when he's throwing on the run. And there was one throw on the run that he made, I believe it was in the first half today, that wasn't caught. And it was like, well, geez, if Cortland Sutton and some of these Broncos receivers would help out Bo Nix a little bit more, perhaps Buffalo is in a very, very sweaty situation to begin the second half. Instead, it was only 10-7 to begin the second half. Buffalo was ahead, and they were able to take over the football game. But for a good while of this game, I was thoroughly impressed with what Bo Nix was able to bring to the table. That is not an easy environment to play in. He had the benefit of it being dry weather where Denver could run what they schemed to run, and that was important. But still, that could have been too much for a lot of rookies, and it wasn't today for Bo Nix. I think that on the other side of the ball, Denver came in here with the number one defense, but it just goes to show you that offense is running this league now. If even the top defense in the league is going to give up 30 plus, and Buffalo right now is about to, I would think, kick a field goal. It's 28-7 with 5 minutes to go. So it's essentially going to be a 30-point game for the Bills against the top defense in the league. If even that is happening, it just goes to show you that you do need the offensive firepower to ultimately win in January. I think that you need a balanced team. You obviously need both, but without that offensive side of the ball, you have next to no chance in the modern day NFL. Somebody pointed out that of the last 8 Super Bowl winners, it's been an offensive coach that has won all but one of them, with Bill Belichick being the coach that maybe Todd Bowles, right, in 2020, but no, that was Bruce Arians. It wasn't Bowles. Bowles was the defensive coordinator. So Bruce Arians, offensive-minded coach in 2020 with the Buccaneers. Belichick, the only defensive-oriented coach that has won the Super Bowl over those seasons. So it does go to show you the way that the league is moving. They're now comparing the statistics of Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen on the broadcast. And they're obviously using just raw statistics, which is not very sophisticated. We can go to some of the better statistics this year and the better statistics over the course of the careers of Allen and Lamar Jackson. And they were right there, neck and neck. Tied 77.3 QBR for both of these guys. The EPA, the slight advantage to Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson right behind him. And then there are other stats like this one right here. This is from Steve Patton. This is wins above replacement, more of a baseball stat, but now we've seen it make its way into the football sphere. Jaden Daniels, who we're going to get to see a little bit later today, actually number 1 in WAR, wins above replacement. Allen, Mahomes, Jackson right after him, 2, 3, 4. So we'll get to see number 2 against number 4 in Buffalo next week. I wonder what the weather forecast for that game is going to be. What if they get a snow globe game? That would be photogenic on television. But I do think that these are the two best teams in the AFC, Buffalo and Baltimore. And ironically, they have to play in the divisional round because Kansas City was able to squeak by so many one-possession games. I think it's up to 15 straight one-possession wins for Kansas City. So despite the fact that they haven't been dominant, they have the number 1 seed over the two teams who I think are the best in the AFC. One interesting comment today that Jim Nantz and Tony Romo made was that Josh Allen is just glowing about how in sync he is with Joe Brady, who is calling the plays for the Buffalo Bills. And this is a reminder that it's important for every single quarterback. I'm not just talking this season, but every single quarterback in the history of the game to be in sync with their offensive coordinator. And I know we have a lot of 49ers fans watching because I typically cover the 49ers, but now I'm covering the entire NFL for the postseason. Look at the play caller ratings of the teams that are still alive in the NFL. And we talk about Josh Allen being in sync with Joe Brady. Well, Joe Brady has been a top 7 play caller, according to Steve Patton's play caller ratings. Ranks number 7. Next week, we're going to see Todd Monken bring Lamar Jackson to face the Bills. They rank number 2. Jared Goff with Ben Johnson is ranked number 1 in play caller rating. We see Sean Payton has ranked number 4 this season. He's playing Buffalo right now. We're about to see the Eagles, the number 3 play caller there, Kellen Moore against the Packers, number 6 with Matt LaFleur. The Minnesota Vikings with Kevin O'Connell and Sam Darnold, they're at number 8. Greg Roman, we saw him with Justin Herbert, who was terrible yesterday, and number 9. The Chiefs are number 10. Basically, the top 10 play caller teams all in the postseason this year. If they go all the way down to the Cardinals to find the first team in the play caller rankings that did not make the postseason. Meanwhile, you're probably spying the 49ers right here, number 27. Just a really, and by the way, this is combining offense and defense, but all of these teams good offensively. The 49ers in the negatives, both offensively and defensively. So they fired their defensive coordinator, or I can't say they fired Nick Sorensen. They demoted him. We'll see what happens with him next year. They still want to keep him on staff, and they fired their special teams coordinator, although that's not considered part of this. But moral of the story is that it is really, really important to schematically have at least an even ground and preferably an advantage over the rest of the NFL, because that seems to be very, very correlated with success in the regular season that leads to a team headed to the postseason. I'm going to open this up to a Q&A. We have another game coming up in 40 minutes. We have a lot of time for this one. Decided to go a little bit early. I think it paid off. Buffalo is now ahead 31-7 over Denver in a game that showed Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills flex their muscles against the upstart Denver Broncos. Denver had a nice season this year, but again, it was like Luke fighting Vader and The Empire Strikes Back. I could even pull open the quarterback EPA ratings in this game. Let's take a look at the box score at this point before garbage time or during garbage time of this football game, and I will open it up to a Q&A. So get those questions up there. I'm going to toss them up on the screen. We'll give some preference to super chats. Thank you to Stephen D, although Stephen did not have a question. The questions are welcome. I will answer as many as I can, and I am now opening up the box score from just this football game just to see the Luke Skywalker versus Darth Vader fight that we witnessed. So Bo Nix was not terrible. take a look at this. Allen at the top, Bo Nix at the bottom. If you look at the efficiency score of Bo Nix, it's slightly below average. He was better in the first half than he was in the second. He's trying to lead a desperation drive with 4. I mean, negative 0.02. It's not horrible. It's relatively mediocre. So is the completion percentage over expectation over on the right. A QBR of 50 is average. He's slightly below it. So Bo Nix, I mean, you can't ask for a whole heck of a lot more. He is a rookie playing in Buffalo in his first career start. He did do some nice things in the first half, though. But the second half of this football game saw Josh Allen find a way to make it work against the number one defense in all of football. I mean, this was a 95th to 98th percentile performance from Josh Allen across the board. In EPA per play, in total EPA, and in completion percentage above expectation. He was at 88.5 in terms of QBR. It looks like Damar Hamlin just intercepted a football. That is his third interception this season. Interception number 3 for Damar Hamlin. That's going to worsen Bo Nix's numbers even more. It's going to lead to maybe even a bigger blowout for Buffalo. But Josh Allen was absolutely fantastic. I would venture to say that what Josh Allen did in this football game was more impressive than what Lamar Jackson did last night against the Steelers, because the Steelers were a top 10 defense, number 17, though, against the run, and the Denver Broncos were the number 1 defense in the league. So this was a tour de force, an exhibition put on by Josh Allen, and Bo Nix might be a solid player down the line, but he wasn't ready for what he faced against the Buffalo Bills and Josh Allen, the quarterback, on the other side today. All right, back to the Q&A. Let's go. We got 49ers questions in there. I'm going to put 49ers questions on the back burner until we get through some of these Buffalo Bills questions. Maybe we can talk about the MVP Bowl next week, and then we can move on to talk some 49ers football. See if Mike has anything to say. Who would I choose, or who would you guys? This is to everybody. Why don't people can react in the comment section. Who would you choose as the league MVP if you had to vote? I personally was leaning toward Josh Allen for most of the season, but right now it's a dead heat in my mind. Again, these guys right now are tied in QBR. It's at 77.3 for both Allen and Lamar Jackson. An absolute dead heat. So I looked at, it's so easy to just play highlights and then play the couple of lowlights, and there are not many of them for both of these quarterbacks, and then have a fake debate based on that. I think it's so important to look at this in the aggregate. And the crazy thing is that in the aggregate, they are literally tied at 77.3 in QBR. So it's one of those situations where, and we don't have many of these situations, where I wish that the voting could continue through the actual game next week, because I really believe that that is a very fair situation for the tiebreaker to come in. Do I think that MVP voting is inconsistent? Absolutely. Lamar Jackson should not have won the MVP last year. Lamar Jackson is a very legitimate MVP candidate this season. He might win his 3rd MVP, which would make him a lock for the Hall of Fame. I think at this point, you already talk about Lamar Jackson as a Hall of Famer. I don't care that there have been slip-ups in the postseason. He's been good for a long time in the regular season. The fact that he's won 2 of those MVPs as a quarterback will get him there. Again, I don't think that last year's was a particularly deserving MVP. I thought it should have gone to Brock Purdy or Christian McCaffrey, but it's one of those things where he won it. That's going to be on his resume. He's a very legitimate candidate this season. He might beat out Josh Allen for it. It shows you how inconsistent the voting is. But the fact that there's even a chance that Lamar Jackson will have 3 MVPs on his resume probably puts him on the fast track to Canton after his NFL career is over. Mike says that the Bills seem like the best overall team in the NFL This is one, I picked the Bills to win the Super Bowl, and I've been picking them week after week here for a while, and I always reserve the right to change my pick, but I'm not changing it after this game. I did wonder last night, and this was the title of my video. I said that the Ravens are making a case to be the best team in the NFL. And here's why I think the Ravens are making a case to be the best team: the defense for Baltimore. This is the overall season strength. And both of these teams play some solid special teams. This only includes offense or defense, though. They obviously both have extremely high-powered offenses, the top two offenses over the course of the whole season in the league. The defenses have left something to be desired if you look at the full season. But if we just zoom out, let's find our chart. I can't find our chart here. Just zoom out to include, man, I definitely closed it, so I'm going to have to find it here in a second. If it was only week 11 onwards, so I just wanted to track who was the hottest football team to close this season. Baltimore's logo goes way up to the top. They're the best defense in football since week 11. I showed it a little bit earlier. I guess they closed out of it, so we're just going to have to stick with this for now. But Baltimore would be up here. Buffalo actually has sunk a little bit defensively over the end of the season. But what I saw today from Buffalo defensively, holding Denver to only those 7 points, I think that Mike's statement is a fair one, and I'm definitely sticking by Buffalo as my Super Bowl favorite. I do think that it is very important that they get Baltimore at home next week. They had to play Baltimore on the road earlier this season, and the Ravens did beat them. Again, this is going to be an awesome, awesome matchup. It is the MVP Bowl, and this time the Bills have the Ravens at home. How close are the 49ers to returning to dominance next season? The team was marred with injuries as well as some holdouts. I mean, nothing seemed to go right, at least consistently, for San Francisco this year. You're always much closer than you think you are in the National Football League from either being great or being terrible. The margins in this league are very thin. The 49ers fell on the wrong side of the margins this year. They're going to hope to fall on the right side of the margins in 2025. I could say that they have a much better chance of falling on the right side of the margins because the schedule is significantly weaker for the 49ers given the last place schedule. My friend texted me saying it's almost like the SEC commissioner allowed the 49ers to pick their games because it's a big difference from the schedule here in 2024. Now, that's just the schedule of opponents for the 49ers in 2025. The actual schedule, the rest days, the travel, that's not going to come out until the spring. And that obviously was brutal for San Francisco in 2024. They're going to hope that that's better. They had one of the worst, if not the worst, net rest differentials, which definitely contributed to a lot of their problems this past season. So on first look, the opponents, that should offer San Francisco a reprieve. The extra rest should mean that theoretically they'll be fresher next year. I also think that the coaching staff has needed some extra rest. We saw the play caller ratings for San Francisco. I mean, you go to the play caller ratings here. Let's go to them right now. And you look at one of the moves the 49ers have already made. They're going to be changing the defensive coordinator. This should get better. Kyle Shanahan should be better next year. He should have some more time at evaluation, and the 49ers should be healthier. Then it depends on what moves they make over the course of this offseason. But I think that the prognosis for the 49ers is to be better in 2025 than in 2024. Remember, the margins in the NFL, this was my first point, and I'll say it again, they're always smaller than you think that they are. If you think that you're really far away, you're probably a little bit closer, but that's going both directions. If you're really good and you think you're on top of the world like the 49ers were in 2023, that can slip very, very quickly. Anyway, we probably have some people joining now with the instant reaction since the game is finished. The Buffalo Bills beat the Denver Broncos. This is the instant reaction for Broncos Bills. It means that the MVP Bowl is set. Josh Allen against Lamar Jackson next week. Two quarterbacks who have captivated football fans this year. The head-to-head went to Lamar Jackson during the regular season, but this time the game is going to be in Buffalo. We look at the rest of the bracket. It is now set for the AFC. It is going to be Ravens at Bills, Texans at Chiefs. And then the AFC Championship game, assuming Kansas City can beat Houston at home, and that is not a given because Kansas City has not been a dominant team this year. If the Texans lose to the Chiefs, you will see Kansas City hosting either Buffalo or Baltimore for the AFC Championship game. Out of what we saw on the field today, Bo Nix, solid first half. But for those of you just joining right now for the instant reaction, I said it was like Luke Skywalker against Darth Vader in The Empire Strikes Back, not in The Return of the Jedi. Maybe next year or the year after that will be better for Bo Nix. But in this game, there were struggles for Bo Nix down the stretch, and there were not struggles for Josh Allen down the stretch. This was a tour de force against the number one defense in the league for Josh Allen. He is spectacular, and he's going to have a chance to do it against a really great quarterback in Lamar Jackson next week with a whole heck of a lot of people watching. I thought that today Buffalo just ran roughshod over that number one Denver defense in a very similar fashion to how we saw Baltimore run roughshod over the Pittsburgh Steelers last night. I mean, Buffalo had, over their first couple of possessions through the first quarter, had 100 rushing yards in this game on only about 15 carries. This was just as impressive as what we saw yesterday in terms of efficiency, although we didn't see quite the same large gap on the scoreboard until the second half when the Denver Broncos just didn't have enough. You could tell that the Broncos in this game needed to do something special as far as going outside the box, and they ran the trick play early on. They ran the fake punt. Sean Payton also did that when he won a Super Bowl with the New Orleans Saints against the Indianapolis Colts. But the game might have been over the second that the Denver Broncos were unable to capitalize with any points on that trick play. Because remember what happened is that the fake punt worked, but then they punted anyway. And the punt did back Buffalo up to their own 1 yard line. But despite that, Buffalo was able to march down for, I don't know if they scored on that possession, but they got a few first downs at least. And they essentially neutralized the field position advantage that Denver worked so hard to get, starting with the fake punt. And, you know, at that point, you're out of bullets if you are the Denver Broncos. You can only use that fake punt once. You had a chance to build some momentum with it. They didn't. And then they had a chance to tie the game with a field goal at the end of the half. It was a 50-yarder, and Will Lutz missed. And, well, yeah, your little window at an upset is very small, and you have to seize the window, and the Broncos essentially didn't. I will say that Buffalo did have to work against Denver's defense, but that's what makes this all the more impressive from Josh Allen. That's what makes, 0.6 EPA per play is insane. That is over half a point of value added on every single drop back. So he had 38 dropbacks and he was adding 0.6 expected points each time. So for every two of those dropbacks, he was adding over a point. That's 23 expected points added for Josh Allen. He was throwing downfield. I mean, that throw to Ty Johnson took some nerves of steel from Josh Allen in the pocket, and then Ty Johnson, the running back, made that great sliding catch in the back of the end zone. There was one mistake that Josh Allen made today, and we'll hope that Ray Davis, who's one of the great stories in the NFL, the reserve running back for the Bills, is okay because he just got lit up. But it was Josh Allen who threw the hospital ball out there, floated it up too high, and Ray Davis did take that big hit. Ray Davis, this is a cool story. I mean, just an inspiring story. He is one of 14. He has one of 15. He has 14 siblings, but both of his parents were incarcerated, and he grew up homeless in the streets of San Francisco for a couple of years. Made it out and then made it to the NFL. How's that for an inspiring story? Now he's played at the University of Kentucky. Now he's playing for the Bills. So we'll hope that Ray Davis is okay after taking that vicious shot from the safety from the Denver Broncos, because that was the one play that Josh Allen messed up. You could tell Josh regretted that throw immediately. I'm not sure what the defender was supposed to do differently on that play, but the NFL does have to throw the flag. That was Ray Davis, though, who has that amazing story of perseverance to make it to this level. Got lit up in this game, but he's been an important part of what Buffalo has done. He actually scored a touchdown. The first touchdown that Buffalo scored against the 49ers earlier this year against San Francisco, the city where he was born, that came from Ray Davis, sprinting to the outside, making the pylon around the corner, beating Charvarius Ward there. Anyway, let's move back to the Q&A now that we, I think, have some Bills fans filing in. I'm not sure if Denver fans are going to watch today, but I do think that their quarterback does have a bright future. I did like what I saw from Bo Nix over the course of the first half. And we also had a DJ Jones sighting. Now, DJ Jones is going to be a free agent, scheduled to be a free agent this offseason, the big defensive tackle for the Broncos, formerly of the 49ers. I do wonder if San Francisco tries to bring DJ Jones back. He was doing something right for the Broncos, a team that finished number 1 on defense this year. You give the MVP award to Barkley if you had a vote. You know, we're seeing the resurgence of the running back position and its importance and its perceived importance in the NFL, because it has always been important. The people who said that running backs don't matter didn't know what they're talking about. Those are fantasy football minds, not real football minds. But now that we've seen, let's look at all the stuff that's happened over the course of the past few seasons. Player movement around the league, I think, has spurred this, because you've gotten to see running backs in different roles impact the new teams, and that's given us before and after case studies. So first it was Christian McCaffrey moving from the Panthers to the 49ers in 2022. The massive impact that he made in 2022 and 2023 really highlighted the importance of McCaffrey and, by extension, the running back position. We have seen Saquon Barkley move from the New York Giants to the Philadelphia Eagles. That's a McCaffrey-like impact that he's had on the Philadelphia Eagles offense. We're going to get to watch it against the Green Bay Packers here in about 20 minutes. And we have also seen Derrick Henry move from the Tennessee Titans to the Baltimore Ravens. That has been a massive, massive impact. So the running back position, this is a renaissance now. We see that A-list talent at the running back position is making a huge difference with these teams, to the point where Christian McCaffrey was in the MVP conversation. He was an MVP finalist last year. And now we see that man, 89-59, down on the bottom of the screen here, saying that Saquon Barkley would get an MVP vote from him if he had a vote. And I don't disagree. I think that it is time to pay some respect to the importance of the running back position, especially when that running back can profoundly impact the pass game. And especially in the case of Saquon and Christian McCaffrey, that is the case. Now, do not ignore the fact that the Buffalo Bills have a really good running back. James Cook, 120 yards, 23 carries, with the longest being 19 yards today. So he was consistently churning out yardage over this game. And that is a heck of a 1-2 punch with Josh Allen. You can talk all day about Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry, and I think that is the best 1-2 running punch in the league, unquestionably, when you look at the rushing efficiency. But Josh Allen has been a better thrower than Lamar Jackson, and he's also still a hell of a runner. And when you combine what he's doing with what Cook has been able to do, really good back for the Buffalo Bills, that's a 1-2 punch that you can put up against anybody and be confident in their chances to win. And that's going to be happening next week when the Bills play the Baltimore Ravens. I wonder what the initial spread on that football game is. It's going to be really interesting to see. I would guess that Buffalo is going to be favored in that game by like a point. I don't think it's going to be a very wide spread, but they are going to be at home. We have an update from the coming Packers game against the Philadelphia Eagles. Robert Saleh, this is from Rob Demovsky, who is the ESPN reporter for the Packers. Robert Saleh is on the Packers sideline during pregame warmups. He had not been regularly attending games previously in his consulting role. He's in street clothes, not coaching gear. Saleh is officially an offensive consultant for the Green Bay Packers, but he's expected to have a much higher role with probably a different team next year. He has interviewed already with the 49ers to be their defensive coordinator. Yes, Brock Purdy is better than Justin Herbert. I do think that. I think you're talking about me. I know that, and I am correct in that assertion. Justin Herbert has never ranked as close to as high as Brock Purdy has been, and Justin Herbert's worst games have been, especially his worst game, as we saw yesterday, has been significantly worse than Brock Purdy's. At some point, you have to stop talking about arm talent as if you know what you're talking about, but you don't. And you have to start looking at facts, and you have to start looking at results. Brock Purdy has accomplished significantly more in the National Football League than Justin Herbert. End of story. One of these quarterbacks actually knows how to play the position at an elite level, and it is not Justin Herbert. Herbert might have some really good physical tools, but he also has thrown multiple interceptions in his 2 playoff losses without any playoff wins. And he's also never ranked as high as Brock Purdy has ranked in terms of overall efficiency. If we're looking at an objective way to determine what a quarterback is doing on the field, taking away fan fiction, taking away social media fiction, if we just want to look to see who's playing better football, we can look at the overall efficiency stats over the course of a fairly large sample at this point, and Brock Purdy has outperformed Justin Herbert ever since he entered the league. That's just the cold, hard truth for you. I don't care who's 6'4" and who could throw the ball 70 yards or 75 yards. I care who can play quarterback. And Brock Purdy can play quarterback better than Justin Herbert. That's not even a debate. There's not even a question. I'm correct about this, and you're wrong. Does Harbaugh need to retool the Chargers? I think, well, obviously the Chargers don't have right now what it takes to win a Super Bowl. They got to continue getting better. I thought they played decent team football this year. I thought that he was able to minimize mistakes from Justin Herbert in the regular season. He might need a better quarterback. I mean, if Herbert doesn't improve his level of play, the Chargers will not win a Super Bowl under Jim Harbaugh. The 49ers have good enough quarterback play with Brock Purdy to win a Super Bowl. The Chargers don't have good enough quarterback play with Justin Herbert to win a Super Bowl. That's just the cold truth. If the 49ers had what LA was giving defensively this year, LA gave up the fewest points in the league. If you combine that with Brock Purdy's season, the 49ers would be one of the Super Bowl favorites, especially if you combine that with the special teams that LA had this year. Now, yesterday that was bad on the 2-point conversion. Or no, it wasn't a 2-point conversion. It was an extra point, and it turned into 2 points the other way for the Houston Texans. But basically, LA, and this is going to be a cold, hard slap in the face for a lot of people who have just been going off of social media bluster when they evaluate quarterbacks. LA didn't have a good enough quarterback. Justin Herbert is not good enough to get the job done. Brock Purdy wins that game if he's the quarterback of the Chargers yesterday. There's a lot of other guys I think you put under center who give the Chargers a better chance at winning that football game than Herbert, who was completely flummoxed out there. After a good first drive, by the way. Good first drive that obviously was schemed up by Greg Roman, but he just could not adjust. And it's not about arm talent, guys. It's about the ability to deliver consistently throughout the game, and it's about playing quarterback, which is about reading the field, making decisions, staying composed. Justin Herbert did none of that in that game yesterday. Do I think that Isaac Guerendo will split carries with Christian McCaffrey, or does Christian McCaffrey still get used as a workhorse or a bell cow? Well, if a running back is trusted in the pass game and he can give the 49ers a similar level of threat and efficiency as Christian McCaffrey, he'll get touches. But the problem is nobody's been able to touch Christian McCaffrey in terms of trust and effectiveness up to this point. So that's why McCaffrey has gotten all the touches. I think that Guerendo has an opportunity to come back in his second year and be a hell of a weapon for the 49ers. But if McCaffrey comes back healthy next year, he's going to be the primary guy. And if you're the primary guy, we've seen how Kyle Shanahan uses the primary guy. He's going to get a lot of time for the 49ers because you don't want to take him off the field. Yeah, I think the Chargers defense is good enough to win the Super Bowl. They gave up the fewest points in the NFL this year, yet they still got blown out by a Houston Texans team that was not playing good offense entering that game. I don't think they played all that well offensively yesterday either, the Texans. That came down to Justin Herbert throwing up all over himself with 4 interceptions. It wasn't a good offensive performance. So the missing piece, objectively speaking, for the Chargers right now is quarterback. They've got an overrated quarterback, and until he proves otherwise, that's the cold, hard truth for not just Chargers fans, but for social media quarterback fans. All right, any more questions? We've got about 10 minutes until we see Packers and Eagles. That's coming up next. The AFC divisional round is set. The NFC now will play the next 3 games. So we've got 2 games today, 1 tomorrow. First, it's going to be Eagles, Packers. Then we get to see Commanders, Buccaneers. And then we get to see Rams, Vikings. The Rams-Vikings game is going to be played in Arizona due to the fires in LA. The NFC bracket will not be fully set until tomorrow night after that Monday Night Football game. The first round of the playoffs in the NFL is now an entire 3-day extravaganza. We saw the AFC bracket set for next week, the Ravens and the Bills, the Texans and the Chiefs, and this is the MVP Bowl that has been set for next week. So while we're talking about Justin Herbert, how about we talk about some actually good quarterbacks in the AFC? That is Josh Allen, and that is Lamar Jackson. This is the awesome graphic. Kevin Cole put this out there a little bit earlier this season. These are the offensive grades and EPA per play for both of these quarterbacks who face off next week, the 2 MVP frontrunners. Look where they're at this year. The 2024 seasons of Allen and Jackson have both aligned in the upper right for this great divisional playoff game next week. And I just find it fascinating that both of these quarterbacks skipped mediocrity. They were inefficient at the start of their career, and now they're really good. So it's either lower left or upper right with all their years. As soon as they figured it out, they hopped over the middle portion of this graph. They hopped from the 60s in terms of PFF grade to 80 plus. They hopped from somewhere in the 0.5 range in EPA per play to over 0.2 and now over 0.3. Now you're seeing awesome play from both Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. We're going to be treated to a game next week. Yesterday, I said that the Ravens are making a case to be the best team in the AFC. I've long said that I think that the Buffalo Bills are the best. And by that, I mean also the best team in the NFL, because I think that the best team coming out of the AFC might be the best team in the league. We'll see. But the 2 teams at the top point differential-wise in that AFC, the Bills and the Ravens, have both made a very strong case to be considered the best team in all of football, just as Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, the respective quarterbacks, have made a case to be considered the best QBs and the MVP of the National Football League. The score will be settled next week. All right, guys, thanks for joining. Enjoy Packers, Eagles. We'll talk to you soon.